GoBrave.org, a TuneIn radio station, part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning to you. And yes, again, it is indeed time for another edition of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. And your host is here. That's whose voice you are listening to. If you don't know, this is the voice of Marc Medley coming to you live right out here at WP 88.7 FM and GoBrave.org, otherwise known as Brave New Radio, because we are able to go where some stations cannot go for various reasons. So I tell you what, you all know the routine. We're going to go ahead and kick off and get started. I'm going to share the weather with you here in the Wayne, New Jersey area. I'm going to read from our two devotionals for today for February the 4th, introduce my guests, share a public service announcement with you, and then our interview will be underway. So without further ado, the Wayne, New Jersey area right now is 18.1 degrees. And yes, it felt every bit like it when I walked out the door this morning. 18.1. We're working our way up to a high of 35. Sunny. Like I said, high around 35, and then we're going to drop back to a low of 25. Our low actually is going to be higher than it is right now. Partly cloudy skies tonight, and then on Sunday, cloudy, high of 42. Mostly clear skies on Sunday night, low of 31. Monday, mainly sunny, again, high of 42, low of 29. Mostly clear skies early, then becoming cloudy with periods of light rain or freezing rain later in the night. Got a 50% chance of precipitation, looks like snow. And that's on Monday evening. Then on Tuesday, rain likely, again, high of 47, low of 45, cloudy on Tuesday night, and rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, rain showers in the morning, then partly cloudy and windy in the afternoon, high of 56. That chance of rain about 50%, clearing up Wednesday night. Well, that's the weather brought to you right here by the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. As you all know, any of you that have been longtime listeners, or if you listen consistently or on a faithful basis, you know I read from two books. Kicks the show off and stays with the theme of the show, which is the reading circle. So we kick off by reading. I don't know about you, it makes sense to me. So February the 4th, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 devotions for discovering the strength of gratitude. Your shield of faith. In years past, soldiers protected themselves with shields, and in Ephesians 6:16, the Bible speaks of the shield of faith. Since shields provide protection, faith must be a way to protect ourselves when the enemy attacks. We can be grateful that God gives us a defense system. However, just like with an actual shield, his shield is only effective when it is raised up. It won't help a soldier if it is on the ground or by his or her side. When the devil attacks us with unpleasant circumstances or thoughts that cause us to feel afraid, we should immediately lift up the shield of faith. The way we do that is by deciding that we will trust God instead of trying to figure out our own way to victory. It is helpful to say out loud, I trust God in this situation, quote unquote. Say it firmly with conviction. Jesus talked back to Satan by saying, it is written, and quoting scripture. And we can do the same. Our prayer of thanks. Father, I thank you that your word is a powerful shield and it is effective against everything the enemy tries to do in my life. My faith is based on your word and your promises for my life. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. The author is Joyce Meyer. And from Iyanla Vanzant for February the 4th, she says, I will know love when I realize there are times when I allow fear to stand between me and those I love. How do you withhold your love? We all do it at one time or another. We shut down, shut people out, refuse to budge from our opinions or demands. We hold people hostage, knowing that they care about us because we are angry or upset with them. Sometimes we make ourselves busy, so busy, in fact, that we don't have time to address the issues, the feelings, or the incidents that first led us to withhold our love. When you refuse to share what you are feeling and how the other person has contributed to those feelings, you are withholding your love. When you don't provide the other person with valuable information that could make your relationship with them better, you are withholding your love. When you allow the fear of being hurt, the fear of being rejected, the fear of looking dumb make you act like you just don't care, you are withholding your love. Whenever you are not offering the truth of your experience to those who share the experience, you are withholding your love. Whatever is not an expression of love is an expression of fear. Withholding love for any reason is a sign that we are crying out in fear, fear of being hurt, fear that our love will not be reciprocated. When you find yourself backing up, pulling back, withdrawing from another person, ask yourself, why am I withholding my love? What you are likely to discover is that there is a hidden fear forcing you to do something you would not like to have done to you. Until today, you may not have been aware of the ways and the reasons you withhold your love. Just for today, stand in truth. Do what is loving. When you feel afraid, acknowledge and admit it. Then love yourself through it. Today, I am devoted to loving and being loved without being afraid. That's from the book Until Today, Daily Devotions for Spiritual Growth and Peace of Mind. And the author of that book is Iyanla Vanzant. And now is the time that you've all, I know, have been waiting for, because that's what we really come together for on Saturday mornings, and that is to hear from our guests. And my guest is on the line. She dialed in at the exact time that I asked. I looked at the clock. I always ask the guests, as you know, to call in at our time, Eastern Time, 5:55 a.m., and wherever they are around the country, whatever that converts to. And she is on the Central Time Zone, like our guest was last week. And so it is like 6:09 our time here. It's about 5:09 her time in Arkansas, where she is this morning. And she graciously called in at 5:55 Arkansas, or 4:55 Arkansas time. So, okay, she is one of my favorite type of people, and that is a Renaissance person. She is a Renaissance woman. And as I read her biography, you will see what I'm talking about. My guest this morning is Renaissance woman Elise Mitchell. She's an author, entrepreneur, CEO, wife, mom, and biker. And we're going to talk a little bit about each of those titles. Elise is an accomplished strategic communications professional and business leader whose entrepreneurial spirit helped build Mitchell from scratch into one of the top 10 fastest growing firms globally, a 2-time Agency of the Year winner and Incorporated 500/5000 fastest growing company. The company's client portfolio includes well-known brands such as Walmart, Procter Gamble, Hilton Worldwide, Kraft, Monte, Canon, Merck, and others. Under her leadership, the company grew more than 500% in 5 years. In recognition of her accomplishments, Elise has received numerous national awards, including Agency Professional of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year, and a Top 50 Power Player. All right now. At the end of 2012, Elise sold Mitchell, and today is the leading PR agency brand in the world's fastest growing marketing communications companies, Dentsu Aegis Network. In addition to her role at Mitchell, Elise is leading efforts to build a global PR brand for the network. Prior to founding Mitchell, Elise worked on both the agency and corporate sides of the business, serving as the top public relations executive for Promos Hotel Corporation and holding various leadership roles and 3 advertising and public relations agencies. We're going to welcome to our microphones none other than Renaissance woman Elise Mitchell. Elise, good morning.
Good
morning, Mark. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here for a lot of different reasons, and all of them, of course, tie in with the various titles that's in your bio, but also because of my past experiences. There's definitely some similarities and connections there. We're going to talk about that as we go through. So I tell you what, listening audience, you know what to do. I'm going to share some information with you in terms of our public service announcement, and soon as those PSAs are done, Elise knows the lingo. When I say PSA, she knows exactly what that's talking about. So as soon as this PSA is done, or a couple of PSAs are done, we're going to resume with our interview. So you know what to do. Get on all your social media sites and let someone know that Elise Mitchell is on the air with me.
I really didn't feel safe anymore at home.
Every year, tens of thousands of youth experience homelessness.
The possibility of sleeping out on a park bench, it's not something that a 15-year-old should have to think about.
1-800-RUNAWAY provides 24-hour access to a nationwide network of housing and support services.
I felt such warmth. I felt comfort. I felt safe.
Call 1-800-RUNAWAY. Go to 1-800-RUNAWAY.org or text 66008. We can end youth homelessness.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad.
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Chris, you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
There's your comic book collection, the race car bed.
I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I'm taking control over my financial life, and that feels pretty grown-up to me.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Are those footy pajamas?
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You are listening to another edition of The Reading Circle, where we get together on Saturday mornings and we have the opportunity to talk about the literary world and among a lot of other things. And I told you earlier in the bio, as I was introducing Elise, that she is a Renaissance person. And the reason when I say that is that's a person who's not limited to doing just one thing. And those are the type of people I generally tend to connect with the best. I have nothing against people who stay on one thing for their entire lives. I have nothing against that. But I know for me, I'm the type of person like Elise that just goes out and have no fear of taking the risk, or if you have the fear, you still take it anyway, of doing whatever it is you feel led to do. And regardless of what others say, you don't let that turn you away from doing what it is you feel that you want to do. And I can tell from Elise's bio and from the cover of the book, she's that type of person. She's the author of the book Leading Through the Turn: How a Journey Mindset Can Help Leaders Find Success and Significance. So, okay, I tell you what, so I'm going to start off, Elise, with going down this whole Renaissance woman, Renaissance person type question in terms of, and for the listening audience, you know, when I say Renaissance, I'm talking about, like I said, someone is just not stuck doing one thing. You heard in her bio various things that she's done, an initiative she started, and she's worked her way to be the best at whatever she started. So where did that whole spirit come from, Elise?
Oh, that's a great question, Mark. I suppose that as a child, I loved to try new and different things and always found pleasure in learning something, kind of tackling it, and then looking around and saying, okay, what's next? And maybe that's sort of the classic entrepreneurial mindset and spirit that I know that God gifted me with, that I was always looking for something new and different to try. And I suppose the other thing might be I've had a love of travel my whole life. That kind of became a recurring theme. Right. Even as a young child, in the back of my parents' station wagon, we would take cross-country trips across, I grew up in Illinois, and we would take the station wagon, my two brothers and my parents, we would ride across country in a green station wagon to see my grandparents every summer. And I think that's kind of how I opened up the book, talking about my love of travel as a child and the adventure that came really, I think, prepared me to think about life as a great adventure and to be willing to be an explorer in life. So perhaps that's a lot of where it started.
And you know what, again, like I said, as we go through the conversation, you're going to, and like I said, I resonate with you right off the bat. And right off as soon as you just said it, because very similarly, again, as kids, we packed up every year and went to either Virginia or either to North Carolina to see my grandparents. And again, we'd get in the car during the summer, and a lot of the kids that we grew up with, a lot of them stayed on the block. But we had the opportunity and were blessed to be able to travel during the summer, again, to Virginia and Washington, D.C., and North Carolina, South Carolina, what have you. And I understand exactly what because again, I at this point and in my various career moves and everything, I've had the opportunity to travel as well as personally. Matter of fact, I'm supposed to be heading over to China in July. I'm really watching to see how this relationship between Donald Trump and the Chinese folks, how is going to pan out, to see if the trip is still on. But I'm looking forward to going there in July. But you're right. That is, and it's all connected. The travel piece is connected. And then, so, all right, you love to travel as a child. How did you now work that into, I'm going to be in my own business? Or what kind of, did you work for somebody prior to going into your own business, or did you always have the entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, it's funny, Mark. So, yes, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I have since written, now that I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, I've written some articles and pieces about what I call the essence of the entrepreneurial spirit. And it's funny, I had to kind of go back in my mind and think, by golly, I have been an entrepreneur my whole life. Like, for example, I set up a gift wrapping station in my parents' basement at Christmas time for people in the neighborhood. And I charge them $0.05 a package.
That's right.
That's kind of how I was raising money to actually go and buy my own Christmas gifts. But I actually liked to wrap gifts. And today, you see those in grocery or in department stores. But I was doing it a long time ago. Or I used to invent games in our neighborhood. Like, I lived on a street where there was like 60 kids, and all summer long, we were always looking for something to do. And every summer I would invent a game, and we would play that game for summer. And so looking back, I thought, wow, I was always thinking like that. And so when I became a young professional in public relations, I had the good fortune to work for 3 different public relations agencies throughout the early years of my career. And each one of those agencies was founded by very entrepreneurial thinkers. And as time went on, I began to realize that they all 3 were telling me the same thing. Elise, you have what it takes. You will build an agency someday. And I remember thinking, what? What is it? Is there some sort of secret formula for success? Because there isn't any right now. But of course, there's not. There's not a handbook for the entrepreneur how to exactly do it. But I knew what they meant. They meant, I had passion for my profession, I had drive and determination, and good business sense, and I had a desire to build things. And I think some of those things are very transferable. Any listener might think, I've got those things, and that might end up leading you down that entrepreneurial path. But I do think those were some of the core qualities I had to have if I was going to be able to start my own company someday.
Absolutely. In terms of working in the field of public relations and marketing, that was my major as an undergrad, for marketing, because I always loved the whole notion of marketing and advertising, of that whole persuasion and influence.
Yeah, and creativity.
Yes.
I love that too.
So that combination worked for me in undergrad, and prior to me moving into education, I actually worked for AT&T for 15 years in their marketing department. And so I was one of the folks that the ad agencies and the PR agencies would come in with their storyboards and make presentations to, and we'd decide on which campaign we were going to go with. So I've worked with some of the agencies in New York and totally understand the business of where you're coming from. That's what I say, a lot of similarities. And then, so you did that, and you did do exactly what you're now, I want to call them mentors because they saw it in you. You did wind up opening your own.
Yep, I did.
So,
and it's funny how that happened. You want me
I was going to say, what was that like for you now to step out And it might not have been a big deal for you since you were kids, the gift wrapping business. I mean, but what was it like to step out and say, you know what, I'm doing this myself now?
It's a funny story, Mark. I will tell you. There's a lot of learning in it. I'd always thought I would start a company someday, but I thought you needed to be old and wise to do it, and I was wrong. Now I'm a lot older, maybe just a hair wiser, probably not as wise as I should be now. But looking back, I could see I had actually been working for about 13 years in my field at that time, and I do believe that time prepared me quite well.
That's right.
Because not only had I worked at 3 different agencies, so I had a front row seat to entrepreneurship done the right way by each of these 3 companies. All 3 of the men who had founded those were very good mentors to me. But then I also had a chance to like you, Mark, I worked on the client side. I was a client for a number of years, and I was able to hire and fire agencies and work very closely with different types of agencies and loved that because here was a chance for me to be in the client's shoes, but absolutely understanding what my agencies were trying to do for me. So it was a great opportunity to be on both sides of the aisle. But the funny story about how I started it was I was not planning to start an agency until many, many years later. But my husband and I were moving. And so, this is one of the things we learn about life, right? Is that opportunity arises when you least expect it. And it's up to you to figure out if this is the time to take advantage of it. Well, my husband we were in Memphis for many years. He was doing his training. He was in medical school and doing residency and preparing to become an orthopedic surgeon. So we were in Memphis for about 10 years while he was going through that training. And when we were planning of where we were going to go for him to join a practice, I had put this big chart on a wall near our kitchen, and it was a grid. And I had, one column with all the different places that we were looking at interviewing and going. And the other column was row that was all the different qualities of things we were looking for in a community, quality of life and, nature, job opportunities for me, churches, just all the things that you would sort of check the box and sort of score. And sure enough, I was ranking all these places we were visiting. And one day we got a call from a place called Fayetteville, Arkansas. It was up in the northwest corner of Arkansas. And my husband said, this group sounds really great. I think we ought to go visit there. And I was like, I don't want to go live there. That's too small. I sit on Atlanta or Chicago or, I wanted to live in a big city.
Right.
And, he's like, no, but this sounds great. So long story short, we went and we visited. And he absolutely fell in love with the people, the practice, the community, everything about it. We got on the plane to fly back from the visit. And he looked at me and he said, Elise, this is where we're going to go live. And I said, quit kidding with me, because I thought I was living. He said, no, Elise, this is it. And I was just like, oh no, you've got to be joking. But it's where he wanted to go, and it was hard for me. I don't know if any listener might be experiencing the same feeling I had, which was I was upset. I mean, this was going to be a detour off of my plan for my life, Like, I thought I knew best, and I had this grand plan, but lo and behold, this was where God was taking us. And so we went, and it was really hard for me. And one of the lessons I learned at that moment is that I had to be willing to scrap the map of what I had laid out for myself and go with the detours in life and look for opportunity. And so I decided at that time that maybe this was when I should start my business. And so when I went to tell my boss I was leaving, it was very hard to kind of hold back tears. I had really gotten a great job at that point and loved it and loved the company. Didn't want to leave. But I told him, the bad news is I'm leaving. The good news is, and I slid a proposal across the table to him. I said, I'm starting an agency, and I want you to be my first client. And do you know, Mark, it only took him 24 hours to come back and say, okay.
I'm sure.
And I was kind of shocked because I thought, well, then I guess it means I better start an agency. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Sort of okay, I don't really know how to do this, but I know I can figure it out as I go.
There you go.
And so part of that mindset, that opportunistic mindset, scrap the map, go with the detours in life, but then be willing to figure it out once you get in there and not be afraid to try.
That's right.
that's kind of how it happened. That's how it started for me.
And as you just heard Elise say, scrap them up, that is actually one of the chapters in the book. As we're going to work our way, actually throughout the discussion, you'll be hearing things from the book. But that is actually a chapter in her book. It is chapter 2, as a matter of fact, Scrap the Map. And that's the way the book is laid out. Very down to earth, very user-friendly language. And we were talking before we got on the air. I love that because generally business books are very, they're kind of stodgy. They kind of do this, do that. And hers is not like that.
Not that.
It's not that. It's not. And that's a good thing because people will be able to connect with it. And that's the beauty of the book and why I love it. And the fact that she's had so many different experiences as you're hearing us talk about, because that really, to me, if we're going to be on the planet somewhere between 50 and 100 years, if we're fortunate, why not make it exciting? And I just get the feeling from speaking with Elise and reading through the book that she kind of has that same philosophy. Let's get out there and do this. And like she just said, hey, if you don't know, figure it out.
Indeed. And I do believe very much more that life is we're meant to be explorers.
Right.
And courageous explorers at that. I mean, a lot of what I learned early on was you just have to go with it, and you have to be willing to try. The world is a big and beautiful place. And, I've never been to China. I hope you get to go on that awesome trip you talked about because, you learn in your travel.
Right.
To think about the world, the big place is guess what? It's not about you.
Right.
The world doesn't revolve around you. It doesn't even revolve around your culture or your country. Everybody is sort of the hero in their own story.
Right.
And everybody loves their life and their country and their culture and where they are. And you just learn I just think it broadens your mind.
It really does because I've done a lot of the European countries. So I told my wife, I said, you know what, the next time I want to do like some of the Asian countries because we've done Italy, we've done France, we've done London, we've done Germany, so forth and so on. I said, I want to go see that part now. And at some point I'll probably get to see another part of it. We've done the Caribbean because my wife is from the Caribbean. She's actually from Jamaica. So we've got a chance to do a lot of the Caribbean. But you are so right. And this is the part, because I work with kids now, that's what I work in the school. And I try to help kids understand, even if they can't physically travel, if you can get yourself a good book and immerse yourself in it and read it, it's very similar to going there.
Yes.
And if nothing else, it'll whet your appetite to want to go there or make a way to figure it out, as you say, to get there one day. So in Elise's book, the journey matters as much as the destination. That's what we're talking about now. We're talking about the journey. Most leadership books only tell you how to set and achieve goals. Success is great, but there's far more to leadership in life than that. That's what I was saying. They can be kind of stodgy. I've read a lot of leadership books. My book is different. I've written it to make you think not just about the destination, but also about the journey. Both matter. They do. I understand how overwhelming and fast-paced being a leader can be, that at some point you look and realize how much you've put in, but how little you're enjoying the ride. In my book, Leading Through the Turn, I help you appreciate the journey itself and learn how to find both success and significance that will change the way you view life forever. Now, on the cover of this book, Elise is in black on a red and black motorcycle holding her helmet. You heard me say she is a biker. Talk a little bit about where did that come from, because I love it. Absolutely love it.
Well, thank you, Mark. Yes, motorcycling is something I discovered about 10 years ago, and I never thought I would do it. Again, that's one of those things in life you learn to say, never say never, because that just may be exactly what you need to do.
Right.
But, it's really a very poignant story that led up to how I so gratefully and thankfully discovered motorcycling, because it changed my life. And it was very much the lesson I needed to learn about making the journey matter as much as the destination. Because if you told me that before, well-intentioned people love to remind those of us who are driven souls about this advice, but I never bought it. I never bought it. I'm a destination person by nature. And, in this the family life, you name it, I like to know where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. And the rest is just scenery, right? That's always the way I used to think about things. And, I wonder if any listeners could say, oh, yeah, that's me, or I know somebody like that who is so hard-driven and so determined to reach their goals. But, I've reached a lot of destinations that I've set my sights on, and probably the biggest one was spending the last 20 years building a company from scratch and then having the opportunity to sell it to a global organization. And, don't get me wrong, we reaped some wonderful rewards from that, and I am very grateful for those things. And entrepreneurship has been a great ride. But chasing the big dream of entrepreneurship almost cost me far more. And here's what happened. There was a time when all I thought about was winning at work until an interesting thing happened to me. As my business, you mentioned, we grew 500% in 5 years. And again, that was such a tremendous time of excitement and opportunity. It's also like real craziness, and you don't sleep very much during that time.
Right.
But things were going well. The business was going rapidly. Everything was going well. And I stopped sleeping. Now, not just the occasional, kind of can't sleep at night, but I stopped sleeping. I had no trouble going to sleep about midnight, and my husband will tell you, my head will hit the pillow, boom, Elise out. You start talking to her, and, she is gone, which is a great thing when you can do that.
Right.
But at about 2:30 or 3 every single morning, I was wide awake. So, see, I should have been on your show back then, because I would have been wide awake.
That's right.
The problem was, Mark, this went on for months. And, I was dealing with all of my work concerns, sure, but I was also asking myself a question that was burning in the back of my brain and would never go away. And the question was, is this all there is?
Right.
And that is a frightening question to face if you are a destination person, because I had dreams and tons of drive, but I had always defined myself by my achievements. And if the destination wasn't worth reaching that I'd been working so hard for, what was all this striving for?
Right.
What was all this for? And I found one answer, fortunately, that really helped turn me around, and it's this. It isn't that the destination is not worth pursuing, but in my pursuit of the destination, I had missed the journey of my life along the way. And maybe if I could figure out how to make this journey matter more, I could reclaim my life again. And, essentially, I wanted to find deeper purpose and meaning in my work. That was really what I wanted.
Right.
A lot of people struggle with this. You work so hard, and then you look up, you're like, what is all this for? And what is the true purpose and value of what I'm doing in my life? And it was right about this time, so this is about 10 years ago, it's right about this time, I was trying to really sort through this, and my husband and I kind of looked at each other, we said, we need to take a vacation. I mean, we honestly, it's sad but true, we had not taken a real vacation with each other in years and years. I mean, we've been raising 2 children, building 2 careers.
Right.
I think a lot of people have this where they put off taking care of themselves, and they put off taking care of their marriage because they're like, I've got to deal with what's in front of me. And of course you do.
Absolutely.
But after a while, though, it begins to take its toll. And so we said, you know what, we need to get away. But this was not the typical trip. I agreed, and this trip is a little bit of a compromise, but I agreed to get on the back of his motorcycle and take a trip together with him. And I remember thinking, this is going to be miserable. I mean, who wants to get on the back of a motorcycle? I mean, this is uncomfortable. It's going to mess up my hair. It's going to be cold or hot or I don't know, whatever I had in my mind. And my husband's been riding motorcycles for years. And I like a fast car. Don't get me wrong. I like to travel fast. Dennis, I wasn't sure about this. But you know what, Mark? I got on the back of his bike, and I was hooked. It was the most exhilarating way I've ever traveled. I mean, the speed, the sights, the sounds, the smells. It was truly an out-of-body experience.
Right.
And when we came back from that trip, my husband said to me, Elise, you were meant to ride your own bike. You should learn to ride. I was like, really? Do you think I can? And he said, absolutely. And I, of course, always say, take the motorcycle safety course, get your certification, get your license, learn how not to kill yourself. But I did all that, and I have my own bike today. Today, I have had 2 different bikes. Today, I ride a Honda CBR 300R.
All right,
which basically all you need to know is it's sleek, it's red, and it's fast. But the big thing was this. Through the motorcycle course, I was sitting there on a Friday night in the classroom, and I can still see today this guy named Big Mike, just kind of how you get the leather vest and the tattoos on his arms. This guy was smart, and he knew about motorcycling, and he was a great instructor. And he said, one of the important things that I have to teach you and you must learn is a fundamental principle of motorcycling called looking through the turn.
That's right.
And, he said, people who ride bicycles will get this too. But he
Yep.
said, many of the accidents happen in turns. You approach a turn, you're kind of going, pretty fast. You have to slow down, and you have to assess the trajectory of the turn and the angle of the turn. But you also look into the turn to see, like, what's all the junk in the road? Rocks,
Right, gravel to take you down.
Exactly. Even cow manure will take you down.
That's right.
You have to assess what's going on in the turn. But you can't stare straight into the turn. They actually have a name for it called target fixation.
Right.
Like if you look at something and you stare straight into it, guess what? If you look at it, your bike will follow your eyes. You'll ride straight into it. So they said you can't do that. Instead, as you approach a turn, you must look where you want to go rather than fixating on all the potential hazards within the turn itself. The challenge comes in keeping your eyes focused on where you want to end up while using your instincts and experience to avoid the hazards. And I thought, oh my goodness, this idea, focusing on the goal combined with this ability to kind of adapt and respond to whatever happens to you, is the key to successful motorcycling, but more importantly, it's the key to successful leadership in life.
Absolutely.
And I thought, like that VA moment.
Right.
Oh my goodness. This is the greatest metaphor for business and life I have ever heard. And honestly, Mark, at that point, it really became my mantra. And I thought, how do I learn to look through the turn more in my life? And as you can see, that was the inspiration for the book, is when you think about leadership and the kind of leader you want to be in your business or in your community, in your church, in your home, how do I be somebody who is leading through the turn? Keeping your eyes focused on where you want to end up, while still kind of, learning how to make the adjustments along the way, but more importantly, learning how to embrace and enjoy the ride itself. And Mark, that's what I had been missing.
Right.
So this became this powerful, learning. I guess that's the way a lot of life works. We go through an experience, and it speaks to us in a certain way, and the lesson we take from it can be life-changing, and that's what it was for me. I began to say, I want to be a person who is learning to look and lead through the turn. What do I need to do to change my life to accomplish that? And that's how motorcycling ended up becoming this really powerful force in my life, because really of what it taught me about finding joy in the journey and trying to be someone who leads through the turn.
Well, like I said, I absolutely love it. And again, there's a connection there because you were just talking about bicycles. Well, I'm a bicycle. I'm a cyclist. Whenever I go out on my bike, I make sure I don't do any less than 20 miles when I go out. So when I leave, I already know the goal is 20 or more miles before I come back home. And I've done various, tours, bike tours, again, 5-borough tour in New York, so forth and so on. And you're absolutely right. So that's why I'm laughing when you say that with the motorcycle, because you're right, gravel and any kind of debris like that will take you down, water, anything like that if you're not cognizant of it. And so, but first off, I love your energy. I feel it coming through the microphone. I absolutely love it. I mean, if I was tired walking in here, I'm energized now just listening to you. And you're absolutely right in terms of the whole leadership thing. And I love metaphors and similes and pictures too, because I talk in stories and pictures. So I love the fact that we can connect this to that whole, how you just described that. Because a lot of times in the leadership position, a lot of times you do wind up, as you're going through the journey, getting frustrated because you feel like it's not working, it's not moving fast enough, it's not this, rather than saying, you know what, it is a part of the process, and I'm still going to enjoy that part as well as the high moments, and because it's like you just said, I'm leading through that turn. But I love that metaphor, and I love that analogy and everything, whatever literary device you want to call it. I love it because it really gives folks a clearer picture in terms of, like you said, it isn't always going to be great. It isn't always going to be easy, and it's not going to be fun, but it's all part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I tell people all the time, there's no such thing as a wasted experience. You may think it is, but there is no such thing as a wasted experience. Everything that we do connects to something else that either we're doing or going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the journey, I agree, Mark, the journey matters so much. And again, that was one of the things I realized I was missing in my life. And when I opened my eyes to the journey and I developed what I call a journey mindset. So still very
Right.
much a destination leader. And I think many people are. They're very goal-oriented. They're very driven. And I think that's great because that is how you're going to build companies or get things done and make change happen in your life. Whatever it is, it takes, we all need a destination and a drive to get there. And I think that's very good. But that can't be all you're about.
Right.
I mean, it's good to have ambition, but that can't be all you're about. You have to live a full life, and you have to really experience the journey as you go. And when you develop what I call being a destination leader with a journey mindset, it changes everything. And
Right.
it did for me. I got back to sleeping pretty quickly again when I realized, wait a minute, if I think more about where I am, what is the lesson I'm learning, what is the challenge I face, and there were some things I had to let go of.
Right.
I just had this pressing desire to want to control the outcome and to want to make things go my way.
Right.
This is also very typical of people who are very driven.
That's right.
You learn in life sometimes, like this is the lesson I learned in Scrap that sometimes you're going to take a detour, and maybe it's because it's better for somebody else in your life. At that time, it was better for my husband that we went where we did. But then look what happened. I came to Northwest Arkansas and was able to start a company that through over 20 years, became incredibly successful, largely due to the smart people who came alongside me and helped me, the terrific clients that we have been able to work with in 20 years, this wonderful community that actually became this boom town. I mean, Northwest Arkansas today is a rapidly growing regional economy that is home to Walmart, Tyson Foods, James Hunt. There's over 1,500 vendor companies who have offices here to serve some of those big corporations, and not to mention that we're in beautiful Boston mountains. I mean, Mark, I could get on my soapbox here and tell you, come and see us because
I may, because let me see. I believe out of the 50 states in the United States, I've been to 35 of them, and Arkansas is one of the 15 I haven't been to yet. So I will definitely have to get out there at some point.
It's beautiful. But see, how did I know that? I didn't know until I was willing to go with the detour and to then look for the opportunity and roll my sleeves up and get busy still trying to make a dream come true. So sometimes that's the way life goes, and you've got to be willing to still give it a chance.
And you brought up such an excellent point in terms of being able to let go when it doesn't go your way, because I think that's where most of us get hung up. I mean, really, for those, like you said, for those that are kind of driven, like getting to that objective, and not only getting to the objective, but getting to the objective my way.
Yep.
And then whenever it doesn't happen, that's where I think folks tend to burn themselves out.
Yes. Yeah. You know what, Mark? Probably my favorite lesson in the book is that exact lesson that I learned. I'll tell you this story. It was a crossroads moment for us, and people often ask me this question: what's your favorite lesson in the book, or the hardest lesson you've ever learned as a leader? This is that lesson, and it's all about giving up control. So for anybody who thinks that's their challenge, here's the story. We were growing, as I mentioned, going through very rapid growth. And I was learning as I go and trying to figure out, how to make this business work, how to manage through growth and all of I'm big on being a learning leader. That's a different story. But there was a moment in time where the same issue kept cropping up with me as leader.
Right.
And it was partly because I was needing to evolve and change my role as the company was getting bigger. And the problem with that was, I didn't really want to let go of all the things that I liked to do and that I did really well.
Right.
Because I was really used to doing, I built the company from my kitchen table, and I felt like I knew how to do everything in the business. But I knew there was a time that had come. I needed to start handing things off and empowering others around me to take on broader leadership roles. And I thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to become a bottleneck that's actually going to hold back the growth of our company. Not to mention how much time it takes to try to control everything around me.
Exactly.
Doesn't leave much time for anything else, let alone your personal life, which, of course, you could tell was, I was struggling. I wasn't spending time on myself or my family like I should have. And not to mention your personal health, because there could have could have keeled over from a heart attack. So, and that doesn't help anybody. So I wonder if this sounds familiar to any of your listeners, where you face this challenge as a leader. You want to keep control of everything around you. But I would ask that question, how well is that working for you? And you'd probably go, well, not very well. How's that working for you at home? Probably not very well. But So here's what I learned. I learned there is a better way, and this is it. As I was really kind of thinking through this dilemma, I had an inspiration of an idea that really seemed to click. And I'm one of those people that keeps a flip chart an easel flip chart in my office, and I jot things down as I'm thinking about them, or when I'm having a meeting with somebody, I try to capture them so I don't forget them. I come back later. And I wrote this phrase on flip chart, and the phrase was this: focus on what only you can do and give the rest of it away.
Right.
Focus on what only you can do and give the rest away. And I remember our creative director, Kate Anderson, walked into my office like a day or two after that. We were having a regular one-on-one, and she says, what do you give away? And I said, well, before I answer that question, let me ask you a question. What is the most important word in that phrase, the most operative word, that if you take that word out of that phrase, focus on what only you can do and give the rest of it away, what changes about the sentence? She said, well, let's see. I don't know. Is it focus, or is it you, or give, or what if I said, nope, the most important word is only. Because, Mark, if you take only out of the sentence, what you have focus on what you can do and give the rest of it away. And if you ask me, the classic entrepreneur, well, Elise, what can you do? I'll say, well, I can do everything.
I can do all of it. That's right.
I did everything. I got the first clients. I wrote the plans. I swept the floors and washed the doors. I did it all. But the question is, at this stage in our growth, should I be doing everything?
Right.
Kate kind of leaned back and the blood drained from her face. She says, no, you should not be doing everything. Don't come over here and tell me how to run creative. And I said, I know, I can't.
Right.
Because I've hired you, this great leader, and I should be empowering you to do it better. She said, well, what do you give away? And I said, and that is the hardest part. Because the hardest part to give away is all the best stuff.
Right.
I need to give you information, resources, relationships, recognition, power, authority. I need basically everything I have worked so hard to get myself, I need to give away to all of you.
Right.
And she was like, wow, that's great. And I said, yeah, well, it's an ideal. I was quick to say, this is a very aspirational goal for me. I know I need to do it, but oh my goodness, I know this is going to be so hard. But Mark, I knew at that point I wanted to be not just a better leader, but I wanted to be a leader of leaders.
Right.
And if you want that too, you have to be a leader who releases. You cannot be a leader who holds tightly.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is critical. And so this is the kind of leaders that all people want to follow. It's a more selfless leader. It's a leader who's willing to let go of other things because guess what? They know there's new and better things out there to get. So long story short, what I did was I created an executive team. So I went from had a leadership team of about 14 at that time where I handpicked about 3 or 4 of my very top leaders. And I brought them in with me to create a new concept of an executive leadership group that we would make more of the strategic decisions around the business. And basically, I went around the table to those 3 or 4 people, and I started doling out a lot of responsibilities that I had been keeping for myself. And you should have seen their faces. Oh, my gosh, they were, they were practically skipping as they left my office. Elise finally gave us all the good stuff, And when they left, I'll be honest, Mark, for about 3 minutes, I felt really good. And then I sat down at my desk, and I started pouting because I remember thinking, well, oh, my goodness, I just gave away my job. I mean, what am I going to do? I just gave away all these things that I love and I know how to do. And I thought, well, I know I need to do it for the good of the company, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, see, and whenever you get done, I want to come right back to that point.
I know. Okay, so I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, and I thought, well, with all this time on my hands, let's see, what can I do? And I actually started brainstorming and thinking about things that, in all honesty, I had never had time.
Right.
So it was things like, okay, I want to focus more strategically on finance, for the company. I want to develop a more detailed growth plan for the business. Maybe I should think about potentially buying other companies or maybe selling our company someday. And you can begin to see, think about this list. At the end of that week, Mark, there were 14 things on that list.
Right.
And when I looked at that list, I was embarrassed because what I thought to myself was, this is the real job of a CEO, not what I had been doing. And not that I'd hurt the company by focusing on, what I'd been doing is help us get to that certain point. But you also need to understand as a leader that you have to stop working in the business in order to work on the business.
Right.
And that part of that is this whole concept of becoming a leader who releases and letting go so that you empower people around you who basically are going to take all those things and probably get them all to the next level because, they bring fresh perspective. You've now given them a chance to really run and grow and thrive as a leader. And, and if you don't, you're going to lose them. They're going to go somewhere else. You haven't given them anything. But, it became to me this incredibly clear thought is that if I wanted to be a leader of leaders, I needed to be a leader who releases. And that's the whole control thing. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the smartest thing I've ever done, too, to help our company get to the next level.
You're absolutely right. And the reason I said I was going to put a pin in that particular area you were in and come back to it is because a couple of months ago, I was in one of the John Maxwell mastermind type courses. And that concept came up and the discussion went, and actually I was the one that brought it up, and I'm going to bring it up again here, is we have to shift the paradigm or the perception or the definition of how, not only for the leader, but for those who are the followers, or if you will, or those who are working with that leader, of what leadership is. Because I'm with you 1,000,000,000%. A lot of times, though, whenever we do that, now folks begin to say, well, then what are you doing? If we're doing all of this, what are you doing? And certainly that's not leading. That's just giving away. That's not even, giving away is putting it nice. That's just telling us what to do. That's just dictating. So that whole paradigm or view has to shift. That no, actually, just like you just described, is really what true leadership is about. And it's not necessarily, it's not saying that we don't want to get our hands dirty or we don't want to do the hand work or the grunt work or the because we've actually done it. We can do it, and we're doing it, but now we are allowing others to get out there and be able to do it to free us up to now take it to a higher level. But a lot of people struggle with seeing that. They think, oh, you just want to sit back and do nothing and have us do all the work and you get all the glory. No, that's not it.
And, and to your point, Mark, that's, remember that we have to all remember, I'm preaching to myself here, we have to all remember that you have to give away the good stuff.
Right.
And the good stuff is the recognition and the credit and the power and authority to make decisions as is appropriate to do. But it's all the good stuff that comes to lead too. And when you empower people with those things, and then you turn around and you give them the credit, this was this Don's idea, this was Ann's idea, whatever it is, and thank goodness their leadership is helping us in this area. And you just look at that person and watch them just blossom because, they were willing to put in the hard work, but you gave them the public recognition, which actually, in my view, recognizing people, especially in a public way, is a great gift you can give as a leader. Sometimes being more important than money is that being appreciative of them and recognizing them and giving them that street cred, the creds in front of their peers and in front of their clients and their community. We underestimate how much that means to others as leaders because we're used to it or we don't think about it. But to them, to people who are following you, it means everything. And that's part of the good stuff. It's giving them that credit for the work that they have done too.
No, you're absolutely right. When I'm not doing radio, I'm the principal of a school. And I have 3 vice principals who serve with me. And each one of them, I have given them autonomously their shops in terms of I have one, her specialty is ELA, English Language Arts. The other one's specialty is math, and the other one's special is climate and culture. They run their own houses pretty much, and and I kind of guide them. And everything that you kind of just described is that's what I pretty much do. Like I said, I always struggle with that. Now, folks are, well, what do you do? If they're doing that, what do you do? And so that's again, your message resonates with me. And a lot of times, a lot of people look at me. You let them do all that? Yes. I mean, some of my colleagues like you let them? Yes. Because again, you part of the role of the leader is to build capacity, to build other leaders. I mean, if you're really doing it as you just described, you're not selfishly trying to keep them from getting to your seat or becoming your peer.
Yeah.
If they can,
ideally, you're preparing them.
Yes.
Right? So that one of them could be your successor someday, and that's what wise leaders do. Is they realize the organization doesn't revolve around them. It needs to revolve around a much broader set of leaders.
That's absolutely. Now, going back to the book in terms of you broke it out into parts, which I find interesting because part 2 is going full throttle. Love the term because I'm an aviation buff. Going full throttle, and I know throttle is on the motorcycle as well. And then at the same time, enjoying the ride. Now, do those two, I mean, there are some people that say, oh my God, I'm scared to death to go fast, to go all the way out. I have to. So how do you go full throttle and enjoy that?
Yeah, you know what? Oh gosh, well, see, for me, that's like my second nature. Is
yes.
I go full throttle at everything, which is what I was describing a little bit earlier, can get you into trouble if you go full throttle for too long, for too hard, which for me, there was about 10 years of building the company that was all I focused on. I mean, I had so much drive and so much ambition that I really was paying a price in a lot of other parts of my life. Now that second section of Going Full Throttle really talks about how the company blossomed.
Right.
When we hit that period of going through the 500% growth in 5 years, I talk about that. People want to know, well, how did you do it, and what was it like, and what did you learn, and I also talk about that we blossomed as a company, and myself as leader, I was fortunate to have that experience to really grow and kind of test myself to do things like I very much believed in building a compelling culture, and a culture was precious to me, and I wanted to build a very unique and special company that wasn't just all about hitting the results, but it was caring about people. We were a very values-based, values-driven company. So, there were a lot of pieces of that I explain in that second section, but perhaps the most important of the lesson of the book really is in that third section, enjoying the ride.
Right.
Which was when I realized, this part of, yes, growth is great, success is great. Of course, this is a subhead of the book, too. Success is great, but significance is part of the journey as well. And we all know, and studies tell us, we can't work all the time.
Right.
You have to find that off switch, and you have to keep yourself grounded. And if you'd asked me a few years ago what my hobbies were, I would have told you, well, Mark, I don't have time for hobbies. But in truth, I didn't make time for hobbies.
Right.
I was so focused on building my business. But I eventually learned that this sort of turning point for me on this not being able to sleep and then figuring out that there was a journey to be on and that I needed to invest in myself. And I learned to ride a motorcycle. I took up one of the joys of my youth, which is running. I'm an avid runner.
Right.
I'm a rider too, but avid runner. And I love photography. I have a very active Instagram page. I love to travel. So, my question for your listeners, is to think about, what do you love? Something that just brings you pure joy doing, and how much richer would your life be if you made even just a little bit of time for those things.
No, and you know, and that is so important. I think a lot of people really miss that. I mean, I actually talk to people. As a matter of fact, I had this conversation last Saturday with somebody that they're in school, they teach school, they're doing a lot of different things, and last Saturday they decided to take a rest, and they said, I feel guilty for taking a rest. I said, are you kidding me? I said, I'm on my couch right now. At that time, I was playing on Instagram as well. I'm on my couch right now, laying here playing on Instagram and Pinterest, and don't have a scintilla of guilt. I mean, but you do have a lot of people that if they have to go into downtime mode or take a rest, that they feel guilty about that. And I said, no, I don't feel guilty about that at all. I love to play. Matter of fact, in my office, I have a placard that says work hard, play hard, kind of like that full throttle thing. But I go full throttle at the play and full throttle at the work.
There you go. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it really is. And see, again, the thing that I like I said, it's the whole thing with you on the motorcycle, because see, again, that's a little bit different in terms of, I'm almost sure the percentage of female motorcycle riders is not as high as the percentage of male motorcycle riders. Mm-hmm. I saw a percentage yesterday of female pilots around the world. They said there's only 3% of pilots in the world that's female. And see, that means so only 3% of that population has stepped out into that arena or been accepted into that arena, whichever, because I know of the glass ceiling as well. But the fact that you've stepped out now and you've gone into what, quote unquote, if there is such a thing, I guess a man's domain, and you're willing to get out there and this is something I love to do. It's like for me with women who drive stick shifts, not as many in these times. I know back when cars first came out, everybody learned how to drive them, but not too many women today drive stick shifts. Like, wow, I mean, where I'm getting at is that ability to do something that's different because that's what you want to do.
Right.
When I was at I shared that I was at AT&T at the time. When I first started AT&T, I actually left there to go into the Air National Guard because I love jets. I went in there to be a jet engine mechanic, and people looked at me like, you're crazy. Wait a minute, you just got married, you just started your career at AT&T in corporate, great job, great pay, and you're leaving that to go do what? Why? It's because I want to.
Yeah. That's right.
And same thing whenever I left AT&T to go into education. Like, wait a minute, you're leaving your corporate job in marketing to go teach. Yes. Why? Because I want to. But that's that spirit that's what I'm saying. I click with you because I feel your energy. I know exactly what you're talking about. And for those of you in the listening audience, if you ever step out and do what Elise and I are talking about, you'll get a better appreciation for why we feel the way we feel. I tell people all the time, and I'm sure this is what I know it is that you're trying to describe, because you really can't put it into words, that feeling on that motorcycle going at 80, 90 miles an hour, 60, 70, whatever. That was the same experience I had for me. Like I would tell people when I was in the Air Force of being on the flight line, being around a fighter jet with the engines turned up. I said, I can't put in words for you what it's like to be on the flight line. That feeling that you get when you're sitting there, working on the engines, on the jets, or seeing them take off or land or whatever. It's the same thing on the bike or anything that you have a passion for. It's hard to put in the words. Now, and for you, this is going to be a real interesting answer for me from you because of all your experiences leading up to being an author. Usually I ask my guests somewhere near the end of the interview is, when that box with your books or whatever arrived on your doorstep, and like in your case, leading through the turn, Elise Mitchell, what was it like for you to open the box and have that in your hand?
Well, you know what? That's a good question, Mark. I remember feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's actually going to happen. And then in your mind, you race through going, well, if there's something in there I shouldn't have said. Where's that? Which is typical of me, the perfectionist. I want it to all be perfect, But it's interesting. I have shared this story because the book only launched a few weeks ago, which, by the way, if your listeners want to know more about the book, they can just go to my website, which is elisemitchell.com, and it's all there. But, that was part of it, too, is launching that website, being able to capture and tell the stories. We have a public Facebook page. I have a weekly email list. We have a blog. It's all of that to kind of build up the support around the book.
Right.
What I was doing was I was putting myself out there, and I thought this must be what it feels like when painters or musicians, they create something of their own. They put it out there, and then they stand back and watch what people say. Will they like it? Will they hate it? What will they think? And so it was just sort of this feeling of deep breath. Oh my goodness! Now people are going to have a chance to read. And what's funny, when I went to go write the book, I had a sort of an epiphany then, because my first thought was, I'm going to write about all these perfect and smart things I've done, and everybody's going to think what a great leader I am. And fortunately for me, I had what I call an accountability committee, and I had brought together 4 or 5 folks, and I bribed them with pizza to come to my office one night, and I sat down with them, and I had an outline of the book, and I'd written a chapter or two, and I said, what do you guys think? And they kind of looked at me, and they said, well, I mean, it's okay. And I was like, well, why? What's wrong? They said, please, there are hundreds of leadership books out there that sound just like this, and that is not what people want. And I said, well, what are you saying? And they said, you need to talk about what really happened. I mean, how hard leadership is, your fears, your failures, how you overcame these changes, the detours in life that you took, all of the things that were a real part of your leadership journey. I said, well, I don't want to write about those things. Are you kidding me? And they shook their head and they said, but if you really want to help people, you need to write about what really is.
Right.
And I took this deep sigh, and I thought, oh, my goodness, I know they're right, which is you don't write a book to try to create this perception of what people think of you.
Right.
If you want to help people, you write about what really happened. And Mark, I am so grateful to that committee, because I walked away that night, and I said, Elise, you need to write about what really is. And that's how hard leadership is. And yet, how much hope and opportunity and how much resiliency you can have, that when you fail, you get back up, you keep going.
Right.
I mean, we have over 55 practical lessons from in the trenches experience as a leader building a company. Myself, I interview a half a dozen other great leaders and their experiences to share. So basically, you know what? It's a leadership handbook. It's a field guide to leadership. And I would have given anything to have had a book like this when I first started out. But
right.
I realized then I wanted to help people. And if I did, then this was the best way to do it. And I needed to tell what really is and how hard it is. But yet all the things that I've learned, I wanted to share to just help other leaders lead at their best. And so when that book came, I was nervous about it, but I was so proud. Because I thought, I think I did the right thing. As hard as it was for me to do it, I told a lot of really practical, authentic stories of what really happened and the lessons I learned, and I hope that it really helps other people lead at their best.
Well, again, the key line for me, and we were talking about this before we went on the air in terms of the differentiator, and that's what I think your accountability group got at. The line that you have near the end, it says, it's not just about finding success. It's also about finding significance in your work and in your life. Now, that's the part I was saying before we went on the air that kind of distinguishes it, because a lot of time the leadership books or the business books don't necessarily go there. And so that in and of itself leaped out at me. Whenever I saw that, I said, definitely going to read this one. Because that's dealing with not just the nuts and bolts and protocols and processes, but it's also dealing with what I call the spiritual side or the significant side, as you say, of like, why are we doing this? And not only that, but enjoying it as we do it.
Yep. And in the end, I lead the reader to that higher point, which is how the book, I purposely take you on an uphill climb in leadership to what I consider to be truly the higher calling of leadership, which is when you realize in the end it isn't about you,
right.
It's about everything else. And when you turn that corner in your leadership journey, everything changes for the better. And that's really the ride that I've been on probably the last 4 or 5 years. And it started with that learning to give all the good stuff away, because when I did, and I stood back and realized that all of these other people in my life and in our company were growing and thriving and blossoming, and I thought, oh, wow, that's my real job.
That's it.
Other people to grow and thrive and become successful, and that's the mark of a true leader. It isn't about me anymore. It's about everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the point. When you begin to realize the significance kicks in, and I will tell people when you can get that point, and there may have been people that got to it a lot quicker than me, but when you do, your whole life,
it does.
And your whole purpose changes as a leader, and honestly, you do begin to enjoy the ride so much more.
I think every now and again, like I said it to me and 3 other vice principals at the school, every now and again a book interests me so much that I buy a copy for them, and we'll do it as a little book study. I think your book is going to be another one of those that we do that with.
Oh,
thank
you. I hope so.
Yeah, I purchased it for myself. I downloaded it a couple nights ago, but I think I'm going to buy the hard copies or whatever version it's in that I can actually hand them. I think I'm going to order 3 more copies, and we're going to go through this together, because I think my team would benefit greatly from this.
Oh, thank you. I've had a lot of people tell me they're going to use this as their book club, their reading circle. Oh, and then this is kind of funny too, and of course it makes me feel great, but I've had people who read it and they said, this is amazing. I'm now ordering 5 copies, and it's going to this person, this person, this person, will you sign them? And so, of course I'll sign. I'm just thrilled, because I think, they saw great value in it, and now they want to share, have somebody else to get those same blessed. So that's a great compliment to me. Thank you, Mark. It means so much. Because it makes me feel like I'm helping people.
No, you are. And see, the message, that's a message that my team needs to improve upon, because they're very, like I said, each run their own shop, but they're very destination driven, and I don't get the feeling that they're necessarily enjoying it as they're getting there. So I think this will be a big help into kind of fostering and bolstering that message that I've been trying to help them get there. This will be another tool for me to kind of say, look, let's read through this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this concept, so forth and so on. Because I just don't get with this whole thing of being miserable. For me, it's like whatever I'm doing, I'm going to have fun doing it. And the point when it's no longer any fun anymore, that's when generally I change to go do something else. And that's why when you're like, well, you're going to go in there? Yes, I'm going in there for why? You want to? Yeah, really? You're going to leave corporate to go into teaching? Yes, why? Because I want to. It's like, it's that hard. Let's have some fun doing this stuff because we get one shot at it here. And so you really almost had me at the point of really wanting to go out now and get the motorcycle.
Well, I'll tell you, just reading the book, and that's the other thing. My husband loved it. Of course, he's an avid motorcycle rider, and he's lived the journey of the story with me. But when he read it in one day, and he said, I loved it because you really incorporated a lot of the motorcycling language and the metaphor, but also, taught people what it's like to be on a ride. And a lot of chapters, start off where I talk about, what it's like to ride a motorcycle and some of the experiences and some of the trips we've been on. And so we tried very hard to weave that sort of creative feel into the book itself. So even if you've never been on a bike, you'll feel like you've been on a great ride, in terms of the motorcycling. So I hope that's something that people enjoy.
But it is exhilarating. I have a cousin in Virginia. You heard me say I went to Virginia every year. That's where my father's folks were from. I have a cousin down there who rides, and they go do the big ride in Virginia every year down at Virginia Beach, and there's a couple other rides around the country that they go do, and I've actually been on the back of his, and I've actually went out on his. Here, go take a ride out on it, and gone out on the. Matter of fact, that road that's on your website looks like one of those country roads.
Yeah.
And so it is a wonderful feeling. Like I said, you supercharged me here this morning. I might consider moving up from my road bike to a motorcycle, or at least adding it. But I tell you what, we're down to the last few minutes of the interview, and at this point, I give you the opportunity to promote in any manner you choose, with the exception of the dollar amount. But in terms of, I know we've talked about your website and webpage, but any other book signings, where you're going to be, how folks can get in touch with you, I turn the mic over to the guests, and they are allowed to do that. Like I said, with the exception of anything but the dollar amount, that folks can figure out once they get to where you need them to get to. But other than that, any way you want to promote, the time is now yours.
Thank you, Mark. Well, this has been such an honor for me to be with you. You can tell I love to share all the things that I've learned, and the book is Leading Through the Turn. If listeners are interested, they can go to my website, elisemitchell.com, or Google Leading Through the Turn. It'll pull up on Amazon as well. They're in the book. As I said, it's a leadership handbook. It has 55 practical lessons from, real in the trenches leadership experiences of how I built a company from scratch and sold it, but also it's a leader's journey, all the things that I learned. At the end of each chapter, too, there's a section called The Road Ahead, and it's kind of like a mini workbook, so that as you work through each chapter, I have action steps and reflection questions for you to take the lessons you've learned in each chapter and apply them to your own leadership journey. So I really hope that it becomes that real field guide for leaders to help themselves to get to the next level as a leader. If you go to my website, elisemitchell.com, you can sign up for, I have a weekly email that goes out where I post to the blog. I share very practical lessons, things that I'm still learning today. I interview other leaders to just try to help people to lead at their best. And you know what? Honestly, that's my goal, Mark, with the book. I just want to help other leaders lead at their best. And if anything I have learned, I can help others, I want to do. And I try to be very accessible to our followers and our leaders and our readers. So you can email us through the website, and I always try to respond to everyone. So I hope that people will feel they have connection and access to us. And I want to hear how they have learned to lead at their best, too, because we can help each other. We are fellow journeyers, as I like to say, in this life.
Yes, indeed. And there is, and now you just said there's the working section in there with questions and reflection points. There's no question I'm going to get 3 more copies. We're going to work this with my team. And we're going to use, whenever I go into our, what we call, I guess, cabinet meetings, when we go into our leadership meetings, definitely I'm going to have this as a part of our discussions. Well, you know what? I thoroughly enjoy, like I said, I feel your energy all the way from Arkansas to New Jersey coming across these radio waves, and it's 7:14 there, which means it's 6:14 there, and you would think we were at maybe 7:14 or 6:14 in the evening, based on what, the energy. You never know it was this early in the morning. And I was telling my wife yesterday, for some people, this is their part of the day. This is like the normal part of the day, 5 and 6 in the morning. For others, it's not. But truly, I loved it. I love the website. I'll be following you on the Instagram and all those other social media sites. And I can truly tell you, you are working that black suit. It works well on you. You're working the black suit. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go to her website, elisemitchell.com. You'll see her picture there in a black suit and with the red bike. Like she said, it looks like it goes fast.
Oh, it does. And that's the way life should be led, in my view. Full throttle.
It is. Well, I tell you what, have a wonderfully blessed day and weekend and week, and keep doing what you're doing and spreading the word. And I will certainly be letting folks know about the book as well, because I've truly enjoyed the interview. I do record the interview, and if all the technology did what it was supposed to do, I'll take it home and edit everything, and then I'll email you a link.
Great. Thank you, Mark. It was such an honor and a pleasure to be with you. You energized me, too, so thank you for that gift.
Well, thank you very much, and we will certainly be in touch. If I'm ever out in Arkansas, I will look you up, either email you or call. What's the young lady? Who was your publicist in New York that got in touch with me?
Oh, was it Amanda?
Yes. Matter of fact, let me thank her. I don't know if Amanda's listening or not. I talked to her yesterday, by the way. But I thank Amanda for putting this together. And again, this has been like a thrill this morning, just feeling that energy this early in the morning. That tells me about your passion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark. It's been great.
All right. Well, I tell you what, take care, and we'll be in touch. And I'll be putting this up on my YouTube channel as well as getting a link out to you.
Okay, thank you so much. This is great.
All right, take care now.
Okay, you too.
Thanks. Well, wow. That interview felt like her motorcycle ride. It really did. I mean, wow, talk about full of energy and life. That's what I'm talking about. If you're going to do something, go on and do it. There's no need to be moping and dragging and carrying. If you can oh, wow. I mean, as you can tell, I mean, I can't even get my words together, because that kind of passion, excitement turns me on. It does. And I'm talking about sexually turned on. I'm talking about gets my energies going, gets me in terms of, wow, this is what life is all about. And in terms of, if we're going to be here for whatever number of years we're here, why should it be drudgery? Why should it be misery? Whatever it is that you want to do, go ahead and don't step out there. Like she said, she started a company. She worked for companies, left that, started a company, left that, did something else, writing the book, this, that, and the other. Why not? Why sit there and be miserable in a place or something you don't want to be in on a long-term basis? It's one thing to have to do that for a little while you're trying to figure out what you want to get to next. It's another thing that's your lifestyle for the rest of your life. Oh, no. So I definitely connected with Elise. Again, her website is elisemitchell.com, just like it's on ELISEMITCHELL.com.